look into the mirror, who is that chasing sinner? Deja vu happens again. Don't know where to end or begin. Trust falls out of my eyes. No, I've been there all these times. Help me as I drown in the sun. No, not who I am, I try to run. Help me, hold my hand. Wait, who are you? I'm lost again. Lost.
Well, welcome.
Hi.
That was kind of a quick intro there, wasn't it? It was like, bam, there we are. So with us today, we have Glazergirl, and she has a new EP called Mothership. What's the release date on that? I don't know if I ever caught what the actual release date.
I didn't put the album yet. I didn't put the EP out for release yet. I'm doing a single at a time because they each have a special message. I want the opportunity to relay that before I do that.
All right, awesome. So I just a little intro, I guess, let our audience know like a little bit about you and the history of like where you kind of came from, like if you were in other bands or whatnot.
Back in 2009, back in the MySpace days, I had met a friend of mine through that who, of course, said something inappropriate about my code name. And you can call me Gigi, it's just easier. And we had a band, and we were probably okay at the time, but it was fun. And when you fast forward like to the album cover, it's actually a picture from one of my first gigs, but we changed the hair color and the gloves and whatever we did because it was kind of like I always talk with my hands. It's like a 180 from where you started to where you're at.
Yeah.
And then about 3 years ago, I fronted a metal band that is since defunct a few months ago, and we're all, we were just talking the other day. And I thank them actually because that separation actually was the impetus for me to go solo and do my thing how I saw fit. And I have some really good friends in music who helped me put the package together. But I think historically, if I wasn't singing in the choir at Huber School, I was always in music. So, but
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Hop.
Well, I guess this wasn't one of our planned questions, but you said you're releasing a song at a time. Is that something that when you went into recording it, was that the plan the whole time?
No. When I went into recording it, the intention was to put it out as an EP, but I think that certain things require a certain amount of attention. So I'm not going to spread it out too far apart. So I have another song called The Kingdom that I'm going to probably release at the end of this month. And I released AMnesia of Me last month. And in between doing a standard music video versus a lyric video versus just the song with the album cover, I want people to have an opportunity to digest it. There are topics to talk about, awareness things. And it ended up working out that way.
Alrighty.
So you basically have this as your own. This is actually on a record label. This is a personal release from you, then.
Oh yeah, I'm independent for the moment.
That's
I haven't
not
been
a bad
chased on the street yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt compelled. I love music. I have to be honest with you. I like to do things my way. So in order to get the messages out that I want, I had some amazing people to work with, and I'm trying to promote an idea because I like when a song tells a story.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have that freedom of you doing things the way you want and not have to worry about a label saying, no, we're going to do it this way. And it's, it's actually, I see that more frequently nowadays than versus, years ago, where a lot of these bands that were on big labels have kind of dispersed off and kind of went on their own route and self-producing and doing everything on their own just to get away. And, it helps them get more revenue off of the band, and all the stuff they're putting out, but it also gives them the freedom to put whatever they want out. Don't have to worry about a label saying, oh, you're not going to do this, you're going to do this instead.
I don't have disdain to labels. My friend who helped who produces, my friend George Pond, he's from Disciples of Verity, and they got signed by Cleopatra, and his frontman's Corey Glover. But he's a good friend of mine in the same secular industry that I'm in, and he was awesome. And he's, you know, he's being put with a label. I know there's ins and outs of everything.
Yeah.
It's just where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, I know we had interviewed a guy a couple weeks ago, and he said that one of his biggest regrets is his second album. He felt like he sold his soul to the record company.
Oh,
He didn't do what he truly wanted to do. So that, you know, you being, you know, doing your own thing, that's probably gonna benefit you from that happening to you.
Yeah.
Where you no regrets kind of thing.
I think the hardest part is finding a good person to bounce off of. So when you're working with somebody musically and they get you, like, you know, 13 years ago, I had a friend of mine, he was just, we could write very nicely together, but we weren't necessarily on the same page. I think when you have different goals or different methodologies on how to handle something, that's where the political part of it is kind of negative.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's very hard to have that person that, you know, plays a lick and you're inspired by a story. A song can take 5 minutes to write. But if you don't have that and you're kind of, you know, scratching at the post on that, it helps when someone comes out and says, you know what, I believe in your project. Let me help you with this. And you say, well, this is my goal. What do you say? And take it from there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. So it's kind of twofold in a way. It's sometimes it's good to have that person there, but then sometimes, like you said, you find that there's going to be a point where you probably bump heads on things and not agree. But it's still good to have somebody to bounce, you know, some ideas off of and see what they think before you maybe go forth with it and see what, you know, is this really worth it? Is this going to benefit in some way? Is it really going to get out what I'm trying to say, or, you know, anything like that?
I suppose. I mean, in 2020, we were supposed to open for a small national, and COVID hit, and it just threw everything under the bus.
Yeah.
And then we got rescheduled, and then we got rescheduled again. And by that point, they weren't having fun anymore, and it didn't happen. And so I essentially starting again, because we were starting to get traffic. It was starting to snowball. So that was exciting, but then it's like everybody's starting over. If you weren't already up in it, it's starting over again, but at least you get to refresh your ideas.
Yeah, I agree with that totally. Yeah, because the whole COVID thing, boy, it wrecked everything in the music industry. There was so many concerts that were coming up that people were excited about, and then just, you know, that shut everything down. And a lot of bands, if they didn't have, you know, if they weren't at the right point in you know, releasing music or writing music or whatever, you know, if they had already done everything and were ready to hit the road and do that, you know, those bands were the ones that really suffered over the ones that were, you know, kind of finishing up on their touring or whatever and getting ready to go into the studio. Those bands kind of seemed like they had their footing at the right spot. You know, they were able to go in and take that downtime from COVID to go in and write their music and stuff.
Yeah,
So
they were working on their albums.
Yeah, so it hurt a lot of bands, but then it helped, I guess. But I don't know if it really helped them, but it certainly benefited during those times anyway.
I think it hurt a lot of newcomers who were just trying to get there and being so close and going to events and going to festivals. It was very tough, and you either gave up because you just didn't have the time, wherewithal, money, interest, energy to do it, or you just keep plugging along and slowly and finding a path. Like I had to figure it out. It took me 2 years to figure out what do I do next.
Well, and you have a business on the side, so that helped, I guess, in your position anyway. You had something that you could fall back on to help, you know.
It's not a business on the side. It's primary at the moment. If this can be primary, then yeah. But, you know, but I'm a general contractor by trade in the glass industry.
So, I mean, I'm sure that probably keeps you busy for the most part there anyway by itself.
Friday, but Saturday, Sunday are mine. Evenings are mine. So when you're working on your music, I would fly out to New Jersey to record, you know, or I'd fly up, and a lot of my people are from the Northeast, and I figured, hey, here's a chance. I'll go do that. I'll fly for like 2 days or a day and a half. That's it. because I had to get back to work. That's the reality of, if you're going to do this, you still got to pay your bills.
Amen.
You said you fly out to New Jersey. Why did you decide to record in New Jersey then?
Oh, because my friend George is in New Jersey, and he was producing it, and he was working on all the music, and my other people are up there. My mixing guy is up there. My graphic art guy is up there. He comes down, hangs out, and smokes cigars with my boyfriend here. And we're, you know, it's nice.
Yeah.
Very, very familial. It's really, I mean, I got family up there too, so it kind of is like an excuse to hang out.
Well, I know when we interviewed Kenny Dubman, he's from up at that area, and he was talking about the New Jersey scene, you know, when Skid Row was on the scene and, you know, Bon Jovi and all that, how hot the New Jersey scene was. And really, we knew it was big, but it was a lot bigger than I think we realized what it was back in the 80s. As far as the Jersey
scene. The 80s.
Do what?
The 80s were the 80s. The 80s were the best.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
God, the vocalists in the 80s were tremendous. You're talking about Sebastian Bach. What a voice.
Yeah.
You look at David Coverdale. He's got that sexy, like, I'm almost embarrassed to listen kind of voice. Like,
yes.
So
and
there's some great vocalists from the 80s. And the 90s, you had a lot of angst. Angst put out there.
Well, and of course, you had that weird point in the 90s there where everything wanted to shift over to more of that grunge scene.
Yeah,
and
it went from glam to flannel. It was
really
hard on me.
Yeah, that was it was a bad time for a lot of bands.
Okay. Whatever you say.
Well, it was a good time for some of the newcomers, but some of the hair metal bands that we enjoyed listening to, that put a very big damper on their
I still love listening.
Oh, yes. We say there is a metal festival up in Baltimore, or not Baltimore, but Columbia, Maryland. It's called the M3 Rock Fest. And it's mostly like the 80s hair metal bands. And it's awesome. It's just like a go back in time kind of a thing. There's a lot of people to dress up and wear, you know, the poofy hair and the outfits and everything. So it's awesome.
Any excuse to wear the pleather. Yes.
Amen. So that's it's like it used to be a 2-day festival. Now it's a 3-day festival. So we go there. We've been there a couple of years now, and we're meeting new fans all the time, and it's just good to interact with everybody and see each other from year to year at this place, because it's where we all kind of feel like family anymore.
Right.
So you want to go ahead and get back to AMnesia of Me?
Yes.
Sure.
Let's get back on track here.
Well, I guess we've realized the videos around dementia and Alzheimer's, and the song was inspired by your mother's. You were saying earlier about she went to the hospital, or do you want to explain, you know, the whole, I guess, what inspired the song and all of the video and all that?
Sure. She's not in the hospital for the dementia. She's in the hospital because of a mobility issue. So we're dealing with that right now. But the reality is my mother's always been my biggest fan. And when I was in college, she flew up to see me in a play, or if I had music, if I was with other bands and we had rehearsal in my house. I don't have a dining room table. I have, you know, monitors and amps and guitars and bass and drums. It's in my living room. So it's like a big pile of equipment. So she would come hang out. She would just sit there in like the big leather chair, and she'd call my father and say, "Oh, I'm at the house. I'm going to watch music now." You know, she was in her 70s at this point. And she's in her 80s now, but you know, she just has always been my biggest fan. And she grew up in a very musical family where they had chamber music concerts, and her mother was a Juilliard trained pianist. So music was always around my mom. So she was my biggest fan. And when I did this project, she was already in the starting early stage dementia. And I told her when the EP was done that I'm going to cry, breathe. I told her that the EP is being named for her. It's being called Mothership because she's the center of the family's universe. She is the mothership of the family. We're all her little planets, her little ships. We all come to mom. Our father passed 5 years ago, so it's been hard. And AMnesia of Me is really about forgetting the self. And it's from the eyes of the person who's in it. When I look at her, and she has days where, you know, I know I mixed up today. And there are other days where she's like 10-second Tom from that movie, and you tell her a story, and again, she'll say, well, what's new? And it's been, I'll tell her 5 times because you can't correct her. It would make her feel badly.
Yeah.
It makes it worse. So AMnesia of Me, if you're watching the video, there's a baby, that's actually my house I grew up in. And that piano was my grandmother's piano. And it's spinning in the video, and you're going to see that there's a bunch of pictures, and then there's less pictures, and then there's like one picture, and that's representing the memories that are leaving. So, you know, it's tough. I wanted to bring awareness to what it is from the caretaker perspective versus, you know, someone on the street saying that old lady's crazy. No, she's dealing with something. And part of her mind is dealing with it internally. You know, she'll wake up from a nap and ask for her mother and father. Well, they died 40 years ago.
Yeah.
Where she still asks for my father. And it's always new every time I tell her he passed away. Really? How come no one told me? But she was there when he took his last breath.
Wow.
So I called up the Alzheimer's Association to link up with them to see if there was anything I could do to promote the awareness. You know, rock music's great, but I like a story. And this was very important to me. And even though it's number 3 on the EP, it's number 1 as far as the release, because I wanted, while she could remember some of it, enjoy it. But every day it's new when I say, Ma, you started my video. She's like, I did? So every time I tell her the album is name is for her, she's always surprised now. It's like it's always something new. So I guess that's the upside of the illness, is something seems like new. But sorry, excuse me.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But it's a very important song to me. And I actually have hashtag music moments on it to also draw people back to Alzheimer's Association. That's why there's a lot of purple in the video for awareness for the color. I had purple pieces in my hair. The stripe across my eyes was purple. It was all related to that. Sorry. It's just
You're fine. No, I get it. It's totally understandable.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my wife's grandmother, she passed away several years ago, but it's kind of the same thing with her. You would go visit her in the hospital, or you know, she knew who you were sometimes, and other times she didn't know who you were. You had to tell her. And so I was there several times with my wife, and so I've been there and had to deal with that myself. And I think on my family, on my father's side of the family, there's a little bit of that going. And I'm starting to see things in my grandfather as well. So it's just probably a matter of time before I'll be dealing with it a lot harder.
Yeah, well, I'm very grateful at this moment in time. She's still got her long-term memory. She still knows who we are. She has the occasional day where, you know, one time several months ago, I had nurses to help her to keep consistency around her, who's around her, even at the hospital, they're there. So she knows who they are, because she's in a strange place and it could have gone totally awry. But thankfully, we're not at that point yet. Let's talk about something fun. That's not fun.
We could totally do that.
Song, though. I mean, I love the song. I mean, I get into it. I hope people, you know, that's why I'm doing the lyric video, because I love when people sing along. I you know, what was in the 80s, probably we didn't have all those things, and we would sing it incorrectly.
Yeah.
And, you know, someone will correct us, but it was still fun.
Oh yeah. I would go back and do it all over again many times. I wouldn't change a thing.
I don't know if I would go back and do it all over again, but the music was awesome.
Oh, I would. In a heartbeat, I would. So, all right. So we'll get on the happier side of the song. So you have a special guest guitarist on this song.
Yeah, Zach Morano.
Okay. So how did he come into the picture?
He was from Disciples of Verity. He works with George. They're all, it's all kind of a little incestuous, right? No, but he's a great guy. And I was asking George, I said, George, you know, I want to put a solo in there, but I really don't know who really to talk about for that in particular, because we were trying to come up with ideas on that. And he says, well, let's talk to Zach. And he was and he was like, yeah. And he's doing a lot of his stuff on his own too. He's a terrific guy. So he put that together for me, and I felt it represented the sound I was going for. So
Well, it definitely
kudos
fits
to
the
him
song.
for
It
that.
sounded great. So, all right, Hop, you want?
Um. Oh shoot! I've done completely got lost my place.
Well, I'll throw this in here, and then we'll. I don't want to get you upset or anything, but I do like the fact that you included your mother in that video, and I thought that was very, very appropriate. And I'm sure that you saying that she was your biggest fan, that probably meant the world to her for her to be in that video with you. So,
Yep. In that moment, yes.
All right, I got my question now.
Okay.
Where does Glazergirl? I mean, what do you mean behind?
Oh, I'm so happy you asked that question, right? Because we were talking about that earlier.
yeah.
No, it is not.
Oh, I did miss out.
I'm in the glass industry.
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah.
am a glazier, which is spelled IER. And when I was trying to
Really
find a title on my MySpace page, I was like, glass chick, glazier girl. I was trying to get something that I could have an email with. And I was like, screw it, I'm just gonna do Glazer Girl. And that's how I met my friend from a band I was in 13 years ago, because of course called me and said something inappropriate on MySpace. And then we've been friends ever since. So it's really the industry I'm in. It's not anything more lurid or exciting than that.
And sometimes it's good not to say how you got the name or where it derived from, because it keeps people thinking and wondering, and you never know. But it's a very fitting name. I think it works pretty well. So
Now I have my new nickname, Gigi. I'm like, what is that?
And that was my wife's mother's. Oh, that's what we call her, was Gigi. So that's what all the grandkids called her, was Gigi. So that's very, very familiar for me.
Somebody.
Yeah. So.
Well, I know when we've been talking back and forth amongst the three of us about setting up this interview, and it's just easier to write GG than Glazergirl. So you've been GG in the text for like a couple weeks now too. So,
so there you go.
Yeah, very fitting. All right, so on your EP, you mentioned that we had 5 songs on there, and we got to listen to all 5 of them, and they're all great. I really enjoyed every single one of them. So we had actually already talked about when the EP was going to come out, but you're kind of putting that on pause for a little bit until you release these songs. But in the end, do you think it'll probably be before the end of this year then when it actually comes out?
I'm trying to. It's really a question of my being able to put together videos to go with the music. It's very time consuming. You don't always want to use the same people twice. You want to vary it up for the viewer, making it so they're not expecting the same thing every time. Unless you know people who are very eclectic in their choices, in which case you can, or you go back and forth for different purposes. One person might be better at a lyric video. One person might be different for a lyric video. So one person will use drones and schedule, a regular video, and other ones will do green screen with iPhones. So it's a question of timing and being able to get that all put together. I can put the music out there, but I want to give the viewer, the listener, something to kind of have a little extra to go with it. And if I can pull that off every few weeks, it would really be amazing for me if I could do that. But I just want the listener to have something interesting. I think people today have very short attention spans. So I don't want to throw a whole album at them at once. Here's a song. Here's what it's about. Here's a video. Here's a lyric video. Maybe you want to sing with it. I know if I get a CD, and I'm sorry, I know there's cars today that don't have CDs. CDs, and I have vinyl here. I think I have my original Appetite for Destruction with the sticker in it in my little area where I keep my vinyl. I never peeled the sticker to put on a notebook like they did in high school. And I got into the game late musically. Like, we didn't really listen to that kind of music here. I grew up with like Billy Joel, Prince.
Yeah.
Yes. I didn't grow up with the Van Halen, so to speak, at the time, but I love Van Halen. Then you argue, oh, is it going to be Sammy or, Dave? And I'm a purist, but I love Sammy Hagar. Oh my God, he's amazing. But, I love David Lee Roth. So, I got in late, but I listen to everything, a little this, a little that. But yeah, so Sorry, I'm a little ADD, so if I get lost,
You're totally fine.
reel me back in, okay?
Well, plus listening to that many different genres of music, probably really broadens your songwriting too.
Mhm.
Because when the ideas flow in, it's like, you could have a little bit of this and a little bit of that, not where you're just going down one road. It kind of gives you an opportunity where you can explore different avenues of genres.
I stuck with rock, but the next song that's coming out, which is called The Kingdom, is like 3 genre kind of song. It's hard rock, you can jam to it. If you want to listen to the messages in it, it might be considered Christian rock. And mind you, I'm Jewish, so there you go. I'm all over the place. It's really just meant to be spiritual, like to return to the self and get away from things, because we all love things. I don't care if it's your Matchbox cars or your old Atari. What did I say that out loud? But people like things. But when we don't sit next, when I see the kids sit next to each other and they're texting each other instead of talking to each other, that just blows me away. So the goal of the song is to bring awareness of, hey, you can't take it with you.
Yeah.
So let the technology go. Let's have more communication. Let's spend more time together, not in front of the technology. And I'm not saying technology is bad.
No.
But there's just so much, and we forget a lot of who we are. And I think it's affecting a lot of society's values because, I come from old school. You did what you were supposed to do at the time you were supposed to do it, and you behaved a certain way, and you did such and such in school, and you listened to your parents, and occasionally you got a little smack in the mush, and everything was fine, and nobody went to jail, and nobody was doing the drug scene. And I feel like we've, and now all the, it's hard. All the parents are working, and kids are alone a lot. And, it's hard. It's just hard for everybody. It's hard for every piece of every part of a family, a work family, your kids' social circle. So if they can rock out to something and find a little meaning in it and maybe step back and be a little more chill about having the new sneakers, or what did Susie wear to school today? Just, and who's, let's just, for a little more kindness, you come into the world naked, you leave the world naked.
Amen.
Maybe you're not a believer, but maybe the strength you get comes from a higher power, whatever that is, non-denominationally. It's just encouraging spirituality, but it's a great song. And when I said it was 3 genres, somebody said to me, you could probably line dance to this. And I said, it's a rock song. So you can take it however you want. And that's coming out next. It's coming out, I think, midnight the 26th. I don't know if I have a video yet for it that I'm going to put out, but I'm definitely going to get the song out there.
So as far as when you, I guess as you're releasing these songs, these are all going to be on like Apple and Spotify and all that.
Yeah, whatever they do.
Whatever
you
the cool
sign
kids are
one
doing.
thing and it says, okay, you're going to iTunes, Apple, Spotify, Kathmandu. I don't know. Yes. I look them up. I check it out. I'm like, oh, there I am. So that's.
And how about when you actually release it, are you going to do like a physical copy of the CD as well? Or
I would really like to, but I haven't gone around to that yet. I think once I'm heading out to do I'm doing the MP3s right now. I guess people stream, download, whatever they do. But when it comes to the actual EP, I think I may do some hard copies. I haven't decided yet on that. I love CDs. I'm like looking at a stack of them right now. It's
yeah.
I'm not going to show you
my whole collection.
I was going to say, look right behind Hopper there. That's actually real CDs of his collection there. So
real CDs. You hear that? Do you still have a vehicle you could play it in?
No.
See?
That's sad, but
mine you still can.
Well, then they had those cars with the Vitrolas for the, before they had the tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that? You could actually play an album in the car. I don't know how that worked when you hit a bump.
Yeah, I've heard of them. I've never actually physically seen one or knew anybody that had a car with it. But yeah,
like my brother's.
Yeah, so we're definitely big old school fans of like wanting, when we buy music, we love it in our hands. I want to read, I want to pull the liner notes out. I want to look
And
it
it was
over.
the heavy vinyl, with the deep grooves.
Oh yeah.
Even though, you know, producers and the mixers, and because all that stuff's important. I mean, their contributions just as big of a part of it as anybody.
Huge.
Yeah.
How do you do it without them? I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, because, you know, the more we've been exploring, you know, me and String will talk about, man, I didn't realize such and such produced this or mixed this. And it just blows my mind. Sometimes you see some of that stuff, or co-writers or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So as far, I'll take over this one, Howard Hop. So as far as like, you've got everything already done. So how long did it actually take you to put all the music together for this EP?
Until I really got my head together, it took me a couple of years till I finally, you know, spoke with my friend about producing it, and he and Jay working on the music, Jay Munch and George Pond. But I actually wrote the lyrics to Amnesia. I mean, I couldn't write it without the aha moment, and I had my aha moment on the airplane headed to New Jersey. It was just one of the ones I had a real struggle writing. Because I would say, how do I represent this without being sad? How do you make it into a really cool metaphor? And then I'm on the flight. So these people are probably seeing I had earphones on, and I'm jamming to myself, and I'm writing really fast, scribbling. And it, you know, it sometimes happens that way. One of the other songs called The Liar's Way, I had a really hard time with writing, and I talked to George, and I said, you know, maybe if the guitar part was a little different, and blah blah. I was having an issue trying to get my lyrical melody going to make the lyrics make sense. And when that finally clicked was, again, another session up there. So sometimes I have the aha moments here, but I don't always have the right person to work with on the rest of it. So I am looking for somebody locally to work with, to bounce off of, not to change who's working on my stuff for productions and mixing and all that. I am ecstatic. But just to have someone to bounce off of, it's tough, because I can present an idea, and usually people are writing their music and then they're throwing in their lyrical melody and their lyrics. I kind of do things in reverse. I have my lyrical melody. I know where I want to go. I can hear it. I just have to have somebody understand where I'm coming from to present the idea.
Gotcha.
So did you handpick your band, or did people?
There is no band at the moment. It's just me.
All right.
It's a solo project. So I don't know. I think at some point I'll put that together. I think I was just dealing with the process of writing.
But you had, let me see if I have the picture up here of the back of it. So George was the producer, and then you had Jay
Munch and George were writing the
music,
music, and we were in discussion. Okay, this is how I want this to sound. This is what I'd like to change. I think we represent this more. We'd go back and forth, and okay, that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I can tell you, the music portion of it, it's just the production. Well, the music and the production, everything of it, it all sounds really good when it's all put together.
I was really impressed. Yeah, they did an awesome job. Awesome.
Yeah. I had kind of done a little bit of research and trying to look these guys up, and like you said, I then forgot the name of the Vision of Divinity. Is that what's the name of the band?
Disciples of Verity.
Disciples. I had never heard of that band, and then I started looking into it, and I saw where they're doing
really well.
Yeah,
they're doing very, very well. They're getting a lot of attention.
So yeah, and I watched the video.
Amazing. He just puts things together so easily. He just I'll call him. Dude, I'm in the middle of writing a bass line. I gotta go. Okay.
Well, it's good to have those people, that help support you, and then.
But they're nice people too. There's people I want to have lunch with. They're cool.
Yeah, And that's a good support group to have right there. And then, like you said, if you got a question, if they're not doing their bass solo and working on their bass rhythm or whatever, that hey, I got a question for you. Yeah, can you help me out?
Oh yeah, he's just. Everybody's great. I had great people. I had on mixing Charlie Barzanski. I used for my mastering Rogue Planet. My graphics were with RayOK.com. Ray's awesome. What a super guy too. Lyric videos are from different parties. This one's going to be from Jake and Jacob Glover, and I got some other people working on a few other parts of the project that I'm in touch with right now for other videos. My video production, actually, Viviana Acevedo from V World Entertainment, she was with HBO Latin America. We happened to meet at a logo release of a mutual friend, and we started talking, and now she's working, she just got a position with a company doing the voiceovers, and she's running the show. She's a very smart lady. I like her a lot. They're good people. Joyce Kahn. I just had a really nice team around me, and they're all really nice people too, which is a plus, because when you work with people who are wretched, you feel wretched, and they're very genuine. So I like that.
Yeah, that's definitely a big bonus to have right there on your side. So
absolutely.
I guess we'll go ahead and what are some of your influences? I know we talked about the 80s, which everybody, all of us are big 80s nuts, but I mean, who is your musical influences, I guess?
I loved Chris Cornell. I liked how he put it out there. He really represented emotion. Lane Staley, I hate to say this, but I call it heroin angst. He was amazing, from Alice in Chains. Wow.
Yeah.
I love Ronnie James Dio. I named my cat Dio for him. Problem is, Dio sounds too much like when you say, no, Dio. Now I have to call him Jasper. But he's for Ronnie James Dio. I don't know. On the one hand, I get excited about people who are tremendous vocalists. On the other hand, what's more influential to me is how they emoted, because I always found that to be a tough area when writing music. How do I get away from just being technically sound and actually sharing what I'm feeling? And it's very hard to do. So when I found that I was listening to certain people over and over, it was because of that. I mean, when you listen to old Billy Joel and you listen to like Zanzibar, you feel like you're in that moment that he was in. Old Vienna, or if I listen to Prince and how he used his voice in so many different ways when he did his funk, is just wow.
Yeah.
So I can only hope to grasp some of that. Or Freddie Mercury. Oh my God.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. But when you listen to people like Sebastian Bach, vocals are huge. They're tremendous. But I also love Axl Rose. He could rock it. So some people just, and you were talking about Bon Jovi earlier. It was wonderful. Just, you had bigger voices than some, but other people pulled you in. I think the 90s grunge rock kind of pulled you in more emotionally, because I don't think they were as tremendous. The 80s seemed more operatic. Even Vince Neil, you know what I'm saying? It's just a bigger, different sound. But when you go into like the 90s grunge, there were less guitar solos, which I miss, but I don't know if people have the attention span for it, which is why I had a short one, and it was important to me. We did it in AMnesia of Me. But like, people don't necessarily have the attention span, but all these pieces of that time and modernizing it to today, the vocalists who could really pull the emotion out of the song, they weren't always received as well as they could be, but wow, that meant something to me, I think, because I had difficulty getting that across in the beginning. I was worried about, okay, am I on pitch? Have I my tempo, my this? I'm looking at all the technical aspects, whatever my vocal coach had taught me. And now I'm kind of very and there are other people who flow a little more majestically. And I'm trying to reach that part of my musical education, so to speak, with what I promote and what I put out. There's a lot of great stories to tell that belong to people.
Oh yeah.
You have to make people understand the stories and feel it in the music.
Yeah.
Team effort.
Yeah. And I totally agree with what you said. You know, like in the 80s, you had a lot of feel good party, like let's go out and have a great time doing whatever. But then like when the 90s came along, you had that more emotional, it wasn't all about having that good time. It was more about, what was going on in this person's head or that person's head. And it was more of a thinking person's music, more so than just let's go out here and crank up the tunes and have a good time and party. It really made you think. And then if the vocalists could pull that vocal imagery out of that when they were singing it, then that just really pulled you in even more.
True.
So I'm totally on page with what you got there.
Is there any bands out there right now that you really have noticed that think are going to be maybe the next big thing? Or
so many. You really want me to try and pick something?
Well, we got time.
I will tell you that the female vocalists have become really something magical.
Yeah.
I mean, you had female vocalists back with like Vixen, but I mean, you had vocalists over the years, Lita Ford, Joan Jett in the rock era. But the ladies today, I don't like to, there's certain parts of the music world that I have a little difficulty digesting, because there's some women with amazing voices, but then they do that weird Cookie Monster demoned out thing, and I'm not comfortable with that from my perspective, but there's definitely a huge audience for it. But like people someone who's been coming up the ranks, the Pretty Reckless, I went to see her live. You look at her and she's like a little blonde waif, but man, her voice is so soulful. She's amazing. I don't even know, she's starting to really pick up steam. They're just the ladies today. And I never really followed women in rock as much as the men in rock, because they got to do stuff that we're not supposed to be doing. And now everybody's like, well, if he can do anything you can do, I can do better. So, they're really putting it out there, and they're tremendous, their vocal skills, and they're drawing the audience in, and they're being dirty when they want to be dirty, and they're being sweet and humble when they want to be, and it's coming across, and there's a real big growth, a real powerhouse in that.
We've really noticed it with our show, how much requests we get for female fronted bands, or all female bands, like Plush or somebody, The Warning.
Yeah. They actually, like, we just went down to Richmond last night for a show, and The Warning, it's an all-girl sister band from Mexico, and they're really pulling up quick on the ranks, and I'm sure you're familiar with Lizzie Hale from Hailstorm.
Yes.
She's said in many times, like, these are the types of bands that we need to watch out for, because as soon as I let up, they're blasting way ahead of us. And so she's really big on The Warning, and really help support that band and pushing these female artists up. And she was so impressed with the band that she actually came out and brought Danny, the singer, a Explorer guitar from her guitar line that she had, and brought it out on stage and directly gave it to her. And so
cool.
That shows what kind of that Lizzie has, what she's seen in Danny, and what she's doing, and the tremendous things that she's doing for the woman movement. And so we totally support. We mentioned that earlier. We kind of gotten an overloaded amount of people that request a lot of female fronted bands or all female bands, and we've latched onto it, and it's been a very fun ride, and it's great music. Yeah. So,
Lizzie Hale has a tremendous voice, and she's interesting because she varies in her sound. I mean, she really has her own sound. And when you're listening to the musicians, you know, what is it you like about them? You could be listening to Klaus Meine, you know, from the Scorpions, and there was just something about his sound and his whisper. But when you look at the women like Lizzie Hale, she's explosive because she has a very melodic voice, and yet she can still do the scream, but not a Cookie Monster.
Very strong voice.
She's just really cool. You know, there's something to be said for that. I don't know if it has to be an all-female group as far as I'm concerned. I'm very comfortable, old school, you know. Although my very dear friend Melissa was my drummer 13 years ago, and then again in another project we worked on, and she's awesome. So that was like cool. But the female fronted, I'll tell you, a couple years ago, I did a metal fest in Miami at Churchill's that Oski Productions puts together, and there were 28 bands playing, and I was the only female fronted one that time. But prior to that, and years before that, there were other ones where there were female fronted. It was just a question, how do you come across? Are you going to be, you know, dressed femininely and still rock it out? Or are you going to dress, you know, metal and wear pleather and chains? You know, how are you going to be received? I remember doing some Led Zeppelin music and years ago, and I don't really like to do covers, to be honest with you. It's like few and far between. I'm just, you know, they say you shouldn't do a cover unless you're really going to be tremendous with that particular cover, but it's more just a comfort of, yeah, I love to sing along, but I prefer to do my own tunes. But there are some people, wow, they put it out there, local. And, you know, you're talking about the music scene earlier. Down here in Miami, it's a lot of cover bands, and there's some really great artists down here that are doing that. But you don't really see an original scene until you go north of the Palm Beaches, Cape Coral, which is on the West Coast. You continue up to like North Tampa, Jacksonville, Orlando, Jacksonville Beach, even in the Panhandle near Fort Walton. That's when you start getting to rock. And when I was, I have a friend, Steve Hensley, he's from Get Wild Entertainment, and he was my booking agent a few years ago. And there was a big metal scene. I was supposed to work in the Metal Fest up there, and this is all within the COVID nightmare. And as you continue up into the mountains, wow, you got your Southern rock. I was featured on JP Southern Band's song Slow Ride, and they're very dear friends of mine. I'm hoping during Biketoberfest, when we go up to at least see the guys, because you make friends with a lot of people you don't actually see.
Yeah.
You're on FaceTime, you're on the phone, you're like we're doing, and you don't actually get to meet them in person a lot of times. So, you know, you look forward to that. The music scene as you go further north from South Florida is where it comes together. There's a big rock scene in Baton Rouge. You got a big rock scene in Austin. It's moving now. My friend Jack Schrader from Fresh Baked Teas, who does a lot of the concert wear, he's out in Waco, and he's telling me that San Antonio is getting bigger. I was supposed to play at the Dirty Dog which was coinciding with South by Southwest, and then everything got shut down. So I was stuck with airplane tickets. I'm like, what am I doing? But the scene has moved in Texas a little bit. But again, South Florida mostly covers. There are a few really cool places down here that do want originals, which is neat.
Yeah.
Ideally, I'd love to open for someone and share my original works and take that from there. Did I get off track again? The train.
I feel like there's a huge flooding of bands that's all they do is cover songs, and it's good to a certain point. You know, if you're just going out and wanting to have a good time, just drink a couple beers and not really care about who's playing or whatever. But, you know, there's a lot of us that, you know, want to go to the bar here. I think
was that on my side?
There's a lot of us that, you know, want to go and, you know, and see a band and, you know, and hear originals. I don't always want to hear all the cover songs, and sometimes that's a good thing. But
we thought we were ahead of the game 13 years ago, where we would do covers, and then we would throw in some originals, and some of the bar owners were not happy because they were only interested in selling the drink. And I was like, but we had some cool stuff. But I think as time goes by, it just depends. You know, you want something familiar because you want to dance to it.
Yeah.
Every time you learn something new. But, you know, a lot of those things that you're covering, those people were original. and they became who they became, and
Yeah.
now they're covering what was once an original band.
Yeah.
So if you don't take your chance and putting out what you really want to do, you're limiting yourself.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
think there's a lot of potential with a lot of people who do covers that are really skilled artists that just are content either to play for the sake of playing and enjoying the audience, and there are others who want more. And if you don't take that risk, you can't always take that risk. There's a big financial responsibility,
Absolutely.
and especially as our ages increase, oh, we got kids in school and I got a job, and but they don't want to work in a restaurant. They don't want to be waiting tables. Some people just want to play their music. I don't know how they live, renting a room somewhere with two other people, but people who want it. I think it was Madonna who, when she was on like Solid Gold, and when they interviewed her, she says, "I'm going to rule the world," and she has ruled the world. But she also, when she took her chance, I think was eating popcorn out of a garbage can. Don't quote me, but it depends. How important is this to you? Where are you in your life to even think to do this kind of thing? Who does that?
Yeah.
Got to be that important to you. It's like if you can imagine your life any other way.
Yeah.
Doesn't
And
mean it should be, but there are people who sing "She Bang, She Bang" and all of a sudden become a star because they're a novelty act. It's
Yep.
notoriety. How
Yep.
far do you want to go? How much do you want your impression to last? Are you okay with maybe being a one-hit wonder? Do you want to continue sharing? I was listening to John Denver on the radio just yesterday, and I'm like, he had a really nice voice.
He did.
Yeah, it's there.
Yep.
He's gone.
So, well, you was talking about, like Madonna. Well, I mean, the same way with GNR. I remember reading Slash talking about sleeping on his own guitar to keep it dry, and so it wouldn't get stolen.
Mhm.
They were pretty much living on like in a old warehouse or something like that. So, they've all made their sacrifices, but that's what they wanted to do.
I have allergies. I'm sorry.
I
I think we lost one of our cameras.
Yeah, I think we did too.
Well, now you can run with the ball.
So I don't really know.
The songs?
I guess with the EP, do you plan on touring?
That would be the ultimate, would be to do that. I would love that. I'd like to produce more work relevant to it, to have a bigger repertoire for it, because I changed my style and what I'm doing. So this is very new. But ideally, I would love to open for someone and tour. That'd be fantastic.
I mean, is your, I guess the ultimate goal is to, play live, I guess, outside. I mean, what do you prefer? Have you played, big shows, little shows, or just playing in general?
I played a lot of bars. I played small events. I was supposed to, be part of a metal festival. Again, everything went in the garbage can from COVID. It really, very close to doing really, really big shows. And I had to start over again, like everybody else, revamp who I am, write the music I want to do. The other thing was, when you're in a group, there's a lot of politics. I don't like that. I have ideas, but you may not all have the same goals, or maybe they're not having as much fun as they used to because I'm very driven. That's tough when you're like that. So when you're starting over as a solo artist, you just want to capture your audience. Do they want to hear you? Do they want to keep listening to you? Do they want you to write a certain something that maybe they haven't heard? Is your voice interesting enough to maintain attention? Is the song short enough to maintain attention? Because, the big dramatic, hi there,
Wow.
the big dramatic songs, Kashmir, I think, was 8 minutes. And Bohemian Rhapsody was 6 minutes, if I'm correct. To capture an audience for that period of time is a different mindset. So having been with groups previously, I just couldn't deal with the politics anymore of it. I really this is how I'm able to do my thing. And if somebody wants to take that on and broaden what they're doing and share it, I'd love to be a part of that. But I got things to say.
Yeah.
So are we, this sounds like then you might be are you having musicians for hire to tour with you?
I would possibly do that. I would possibly do, some people go out there and they have their backing tracks and then they just sing in front of it and don't have a band. Other people have a band. Either way, I'm live. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I would be live. I don't know yet what would be in the best interest of all that. I think it's a question of, as long as the sound is good,
Yeah.
and it makes sense, and the people like that, I want them to enjoy what I'm putting into the universe. I remember in the movie Purple Rain, there's a scene where Prince is called the Kid, and the guy who ran the place says, you're just playing what you want to hear, not what the people want to hear. But when he stuck to his guns, in the end, everybody wanted to hear it.
Yeah.
And it was tremendous. And I hope that to get a draw like that by, I work well with others, but I still have my goals. And it's very hard sometimes to be on the same page. Some people want to have a great time. They want to do the bar scene. I've done the bar scene. I'm not against the bar scene, but that does require a lot of covers, and that doesn't tickle me the same way. I'm very picky which ones I would want to do. I do have some in mind that actually would really excite me, because maybe those songstresses would, sorry about that. Just making sure I wasn't in the hospital. Okay. Let me shut off the volume on this. I thought I did. How do I do this? Vibrate. Okay. So, where was I? Did I mention I'm a little ADD?
Are you talking about cover tunes?
I'm sorry?
Talking about cover tunes when you.
Yeah. So there are a few that really, excite me to do, because I like the story behind the song. I love when somebody's telling a story versus just, I can appreciate just rocking out, but I get more out of it. What is that? Did you guys just write that?
I think that's probably Wes.
What? I prefer to do originals because it's coming from my thoughts and feelings. But I'm not against doing the covers, but there's a certain limitation when you just do covers.
Well, I know you was talking about, playing songs that you want to play and stuff that, you put your heart into. You talked about that Prince, for example. I think if you don't do that, well, we call it anymore phoning in the show, where you're just kind of going through the motions. Yeah. I think if you're not doing what you don't want to, if you're not doing
what you want to do,
yeah, what you want to do, it's not going to be real.
You also have to stay within a genre that's relevant, though. Active rock is a big thing. I was speaking with Carrie Ann Grove from Rock's TV Radio, and she says that I come across rather as modern rock. And I was thinking modern rock, I'm thinking 80s, thin black ties and really zing hair. But she's just saying from the active rock perspective, it's just a modern take on it. So I think you have to, that's what's on the radio. That's what's going to be on Octane. That's what's going to be on Ozzy's Boneyard if you're listening to satellite. So you should still have your own sound. You still have your own thought process. You obviously want to surround yourself with the best musicians possible, because that just makes everything elevated. But you should try to meet something the public will enjoy. When grunge came out, it was a total out of left field from anybody who was 80s music. It was like all of a sudden glam rock got slammed in the door. Here comes grunge. And it had a listening pool. Where did the listening pool come from? It was just so unheard of at the moment that people got excited. So if active rock is the way to roll, and it just turns out that it's a little more modern, I find that there's more of a European audience at the moment that I'm getting responsive wise, a lot from the UK, Italy, Philippines, Denmark, Netherlands. These are the people who are reaching out. I'm trying to get a US base. I just want to share it. I'm having a great time doing it. I want everyone to jam out.
Yeah. And you spoke about, the European audience, that it just seems like I don't, and it's been like this for years. It seems like the US audience is always harder on the bands than any other country. And we've seen it, with multiple bands, across the board that we've reviewed or did, just been listening to over the years, like how big they are in Japan and Europe and all these other countries. And then when they get here, like the album sales are just nowhere close to what, and it's more on the non-mainstream type of stuff. Now the mainstream stuff here, it's always popular, but
I don't know, people like Rammstein out of Germany.
yeah,
They're huge. They're more metal and electric, and they've got their own comeuppance over here in the United States, but they were mostly European. There are a lot of bands that who likes to rock out where. You got a lot of music. You have people from the Ukraine, you have people from Germany, you have people South Korea, you got K-pop, but even they listen to rock.
Yeah.
And they actually are pretty cool about more glamorous probably than what we've seen as of late from way back when, just a more speed metal sound. But the overseas market is definitely different than here from what I can see as a consumer of music.
Yeah.
Do I know a lot of the bands overseas? Not yet, but I'm actually looking at them to say, hey, what is it that seems to be motivating people to take more of an interest in what I'm putting out right now? Locally, I'm starting to get play on the podcast radio. What do they call it? What's the right word for it?
I guess the stream, just the random.
The music streaming channels are starting to pick it up. But one of them was out of Italy. I hadn't heard of them, and I was checking. I'm like, I don't know these bands. I'm gonna go look at these bands. Who are they? I want to check it out. See how do I relate to that particular setting? Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of room for everybody. You just have to find what it's not even so much what your audience wants. It's just what are they responding to?
Yeah.
I just wanted to make music.
We want to listen to music.
Yes, exactly. We definitely want to listen to music. That's what we're all about here. We just, it doesn't have to be the latest, the greatest, the newest, whatever. We like the stuff that it's been out for a while. We still love going back and through our CD collections and pulling out that, random, CD that really didn't get all the airplay like all the other popular 80s songs and whatnot did. But, it's just all about, it's just kind of what you're in the mood for too.
I'm listening to a lot of 70s music right now. I'm having
a lot of great stuff in there. Yeah.
There's some really great stuff. There's some not so great stuff, but there's some really great stuff.
Yes.
I think every year.
I'm like, wow, and I'm trying to think, would that be really cool if it was made more metal or made more hard rock? I mean, I can sing anything. I can sing country. I can sing rock, but you have to also be into what you're putting out there. You have to enjoy it yourself. I think that's a big thing. Each song, and I know it's only 5 on this EP, each song has its own value. I think each song has its own sound. We talked about 2 of them. We talked about The Kingdom, and we talked about AMnesia of Me. When you talk about a song like Chilly Flower, oh my God, did you get to hear that? You heard all 5, right?
Yeah.
So Chilly Flower is actually about a friend of mine. I'm not going to say where or who, except that when he was a small child, the house he lived in backed up to a wall, and on the other side was commercial versus residential. And there was a robbery, and a guy jumped the wall, and his mother had a garden, and he dropped the gun in the flowers. So here's this 4-year-old, and he sees something shiny in the flowers. Well, it's called Chilly Flower because a garden's about warmth. It's about solace, peace, a place to meditate. And here you have a little kid who finds a gun in the garden and points it at his older brother. And thankfully, there wasn't a real tragedy that the brother was able to get it from him and give it to the mother. And there's a line in the song, Mama's hand gets burned by the sun. And it's not the sun. It's not solar. It's not even a hot gun. It's just the son giving her a weapon that was found because of a criminal activity. So, each song I think is relevant to what goes on today.
Mm.
It was not the intent. Oh, we have thunder here. Do you hear it?
Nah.
It's a big storm. I have a generator. We're good.
Oh, okay, good.
So, yes, that was like the first thing I did was put in a generator. But when you listen to Don't Weep, that's about domestic violence. That came from a story I heard amongst people that I know. They were talking about another friend of theirs and a woman who couldn't seem to either not see what she got herself into or was unwilling to get out. And there's a line in the song, fear is her scent, but who pays your rent? And that could be male or female. Why are you staying in it? You're afraid to go. Why are you staying in it? You have a need. Why are you staying in it? You don't know what to do. You can't see your way out. It's not a judgment or a criticism. God bless the people who make it through the rain. And we need to be aware that there are people suffering in a really terrifying situation. And sometimes they try to reach out and none of us want to be involved, right? Nobody wants to be involved. There's too many lawsuits. But truth be told, there are people who do need a hand. They need an ear.
Yeah.
They need, it's like when someone says, hey, I'm going to move. Where are you going to move? Well, what stays the same everywhere you move? The individual. You got to change you. Yeah. But you can't do that while you're feeling trapped in a situation. You look into the abyss and you seek darkness. And it's only when you look up into the light, you realize there's a way out. But how do you get there? It's a tough road.
Yeah.
I don't wish it on anybody.
Yeah.
I don't want to even represent that I really know about this. Again, it was based on a story I had heard. That's where it comes from. A lot of these things come from that. Yeah. The fifth song, which is called The Liar's Way, maybe we'll all relate to, is essentially, have you ever been in those moments where you could tell the other person's really falling for you and you're really into them, but you're not quite there, and you're kind of warning them, don't fall, run, but I'm really enjoying you.
Yeah.
Don't fall. I'm really into you, but I'm not at that part. And that's hard. So when you lie, you're not even being a liar. You're lying by omission. You're omitting the fact that you're not there. So everybody becomes the liar at that point, not with intention necessarily. I'm not talking about people who are intentionally horrible and rotten and doing mean things to people. I'm talking about you find yourself sometimes in a circumstance where you really want to love that person. You know they're into you. You really want to get there. You just can't get there. So I think they're all relatable.
Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head. If nothing else, you have at least one or two songs that is very relatable.
Where are you?
I'm right here.
Something just happened. Hang on. Oh, okay. Hi. I think popped up.
But yeah, I think it's something there for everybody, and that you're going to at least have one song that's relatable for it. And I think each song is uniquely different in its own little way. There's nothing that sounds, it's not like the same song being repeated with different lyrics. It's definitely, each song has its own individual flavor, and through, it's very, very good album. And I think you did a very good job on it.
Thank you very much.
So, Gigi, I just pulled myself back on the screen because I've been watching and listening the whole time. And gosh, there's so many parallels that I've heard and seen from what you've talked about with making music and doing your thing and what's inspired you to every other business in the world. I mean, it's what my wife and I do. And it's what I see String and Hop deal with and so on. I mean, you just told a great story throughout this process. So I just wanted to chime in while the dogs weren't barking and share. It was inspiring.
The cats weren't involved with jumping around.
Yeah. so thanks for sharing all that. I mean, it was just powerful.
Thank you. I try.
Greg, you got anything else?
I don't, and I was trying to quickly look over any other questions. I don't think.
I didn't see
any questions, guys. I see Melody from Japan says hello at 4:10 a.m. So Melody, being with us.
So that's awesome. We got Tokyo chiming in there with us. That's very cool.
Very cool.
So Gigi, we greatly appreciate your hanging out here with us. And actually, I told you early on, I hoped we had enough to get us at least a half hour, and we like to talk. So we we succeeded in breaking that hour. So we greatly appreciate you hanging out with us.
I don't have my glasses on. I can't even see what time it is now.
We got about almost it's 11 minutes after 3. So
wow. Okay.
So, but yes, we greatly appreciate you hanging out with us and putting up with us for this hour. And
no, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. It really meant a lot. I sincerely appreciate that you've included me in your podcast. I hope that you get a lot of positive responses. You guys have been terrific.
Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.
And we hope you all the success with this. And
thank you. I hope everybody enjoys the Mothership EP. I know we're only doing one song at a time, but I think I want to give people time to digest each song and be able to give them something to look at.
It's a cool way to do it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And we have a very, very good, open-minded audience, and everybody's always open to check out new bands and new, whatever's going on in the industry. So we're always trying to help push. They're feeding us with new bands, so we help try to push the new bands out there for them. So again, so thank you for having something wonderful to listen to. So
yeah.
Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
All right. So hang out. We're going to end the live here, but then we'll be good to go.
Okay.
Pop metal.